Hi, I'm Ron,
I'm Don.
and this is the Ron and Don Show.
Today we're going to have a little more fun. I'm going to ask him some questions that put him on the hot spot.
Oh boy,
So,
nobody saw me do it, right?
what do you look for when you're looking at a company that needs to have work done? What do you want to see from the facilities manager and that company, and how do you develop that relationship?
Okay, all right, that's a fair question. Just in review, I've been a contractor for 32 years now, and that's a long time to have had the privilege of working with a lot of people, a lot of facility managers, folks like yourself. And so we have kind of, over the years, narrowed down the first thing we look for is opportunity. It doesn't make sense to go chasing after a facility manager or his company if they are not in a position where they have any interest in maintaining their restaurants. And unfortunately, there are some locations out there, or some brands that are out there like that. I think the second thing we're looking for a great teacher. I can't begin to tell you the success that we have marked over so many years as a result of having the privilege of working for so many great facility managers that were great teachers. And yourself included in that, Professor Turner. You get to wear that hat as well, but there's a lot to be said for learning, and from learning the right way, and from learning from your mistakes, and from having an environment where there is an opportunity to learn. And that doesn't mean you can screw up and call it a learning lesson. I mean, but it does mean that you have the flexibility of being able to make some mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And we mentioned on another episode about mixing up grout in the sanitary buckets of the restaurant. It should not be a death by firing squad offense, but it darn well better be something you learn the first time around and don't have to have that conversation from the FM a second time. So I recall that when we started to grow together a little over a decade ago, that we did not have the breadth of knowledge with regard to some of your brands and what the requirements were and how to fulfill the needs of the varying needs of the various brands. And so the amount of time you invested in sitting us down and teaching us the proper way of doing things with one brand may not be the same proper way of doing it with another brand, and the importance of the distinction between the two was something that allowed us to become more successful, and I think, quite frankly, our relationship to become more successful.
Once you've decided that that's the facilities manager and or company or combination thereof that you want to get in bed with, in effect, what happens when they call and say, you know, you're not the bottom bidder, and you're a little high on this?
Well, I think confidence from our side, from the contractor's side, comes from what we have very painstakingly developed as our value proposition. We've decided, we've become comfortable in our skin. We know who we are. We know what it costs to do business, and we know where we want to be in that sector of the business. So I would have in this relationship, I would hope to have the opportunity to have the conversation that is more specific to, okay, if we're not the lowest bidder, then I question to you, is there value in what we're doing, or are you solely driven by the lowest bidder every time for every job?
In that relationship of value, do you ever re-evaluate to see whether or not what you were bidding on was different from the specification that were originally identified?
Well, I think if that information is available to the contractor, that we certainly would do that. I would say that the majority of the time it's not available, and I would hope that in the discussion and in the relationship that we have, you would come back to me and say, yes, this is an apples for apples comparison, or no, it's not. For example, somebody else is using a latex grout, and your proposal includes an epoxy grout, and as you and I both know, there's a wide variety in the pricing of those two things, not only in terms of the cost of the materials, but the installation time as well. Mm-hmm. And I think the third thing that is important to us is just the transparency and the trust in the relationship. If we can't establish early on in a relationship between the two parties a sense of trust, then I think it's just not otherwise conducive to a long-term relationship. And I think a great example of that is I don't know, perhaps a wall covering job in the front of the house. Our crews are in the restaurant late at night. You're in bed, hopefully asleep somewhere, and we peel back that layer of wallboard and find out that we've got mildew issues behind there, or perhaps some unsized walls, and you know, the face of the drywall itself is peeling off. So there's a number of problems that we can encounter when we're at a project late at night, and we need that level of trust between parties to say, hey, you know, we're gonna have Don's backing on this. We need to do the right thing and just continue to tear into this, and if we need to go get some drywall at 6 a.m. so we can button this thing back up, and obviously we're gonna have a conversation with you after the sun comes up. But we need that layer of trust, that level of trust between the parties, so that there's an understanding that when problems are encountered, problems can be dealt with.
Well, this gives you a little bit of a look at what the contractor is looking for in a facilities manager and or companies that he is employed by, how they look at the relationship and the partnership to be built over time. This is Ron, this is Don, and you've been watching the Ron and Don Show. So, if you wanted to learn more or to see more or subscribe, go here.